Hi everyone, welcome to this week's scheduling meetings. And this meeting is being recorded, so be aware of what you are going to say, and it will be public in the internet. So let me share my screen, I think, which will be convenient. Anyway, the new mic system to prevent that because some privacy settings. So just open the Google Doc so we can review one by one. So first one, there was a code freeze, not code freeze, the cap freeze on the 119 caps. So several of our caps get updated to either reflect its real status to beta or GA. And also we are adopting the latest PRR cap standard. PRR is short for Production Readiness Review. So that needs you to answer some questions on scalability, on metrics, on rollback, something concerns with running it really in the production environment. So we've been adopting that. And the first one is to promote the component config, schedule component config to Viva Beta 1. There are still some items going on. For example, remove the binding second settings, as well as some other ones. So Aldo, so are we going to wait for those PRs to update the V1 Alpha 2 API, and then we start the V1 Beta 1 PR?
Yes, there's one pending PR to move some plugin args, and after that we can just start renaming V1 Alpha 2 into beta. And yeah, there should be a single huge PR. And after that, we can start moving around the fields. So just two requirements, which is remove the volume binding timeout, and removing the unreserved extension point from the framework. So
Okay,
basically 3 PRs need to go through for that.
Okay, I just list 2 ones here, so if I miss anything, you can add the other one. So additionally,
the issue, right? Like there's an issue to track this. The issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
Abdullah, could
there's an
you
issue.
link that issue here?
Put it in the doc.
Okay, please. And also, we need someone to bring up the V1 Beta 1 API when all the dependencies are cleared. So Aldo, are you going to work on this if you don't have much stuff in your plate?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have much stuff in your plate, could you, could you lead the V1 Beta 1 API PR?
Yes, absolutely. I was already going to do that.
Thank you.
No, I think he's asking if someone else would like to volunteer to do the work. I wonder if Mike on the call, if you're interested in doing the upgrade to beta, unless Aldo actually want to do it. It's in the chat. He wants to delegate it.
I'm happy to delegate. Yes, I'm happy to delegate the implementation.
I don't have much. Yeah, so if you can delegate that to me, where's the tracking issue for that? You said that we had one, right?
I'm looking
Or that
for
we didn't have one yet.
it.
Yes. Yeah. So no matter Aldo is taking this or dedicated to Mike or someone else, we maybe need to be a little get it prioritize a little bit because we are less than maybe just 1 month before the code freeze, I guess. So because API reviews sometimes take time, and also the post filter definition PR needs to depend on this. I need the Viva Beta 1 to come out first, and then I add the additional post filter APIs there. So no matter who is taking owner on this, maybe we should start right working on this. Yeah, I just mentioned we should prioritize this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, I'm just waiting for PR to go through.
Yeah, no hurry. Just
yes. So I hope to get this on Monday.
Yeah, although we lost your voice.
I hope to get this on Monday, the V1 Beta 1 renaming. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, we somewhat lost your voice, I think.
Sorry, I said I want to have the V1. Oh, okay.
All right. This is the component config to V1 Beta 1. Second one is the post filter extension point, which the number is 91038. So there are two parts here. One is the I call it prefactoring, and two of them have been merged, and I think three of them have merged. The third one also got merged. So there's only one left, which is to the last one of the part one is to combine all the necessary stuff into one interface called preempt handle. And preempt handle wraps some necessary methods to run the filter and the pre-filter add part of pre-filter remove part, because that is necessary for you to run the preemption logic to do a dry run to simulate which preemption strategy can make the part schedulable. So that is the last one, 90711. And also yesterday I raised one on the part two, which is to bring up the definition of post filter. So that PR, of course, will fail on the CI because I only add the API in the internal version package, not including the external staging version package. So that is what I just mentioned, that this PR is also depends on the V1 Beta 1 graduation. And after that, I will bring up another PR to implement all the hard-coded preemption logic as the post-filter plugin. So, and after that, all the items are in good shape to enable the developers to develop their customized post-filter plugin, not only limited to preemption, but whatever they want to do. So this is the current status of post-filter extension point. And next one is Abdullah did some tremendous work on optimizing the performance of pod affinity and the pod anti-affinity. And yeah, Abdullah, do you want to mention some? I list all the items you did.
Yeah, so we had this idea before of introducing what we call like pod info, which is synonym to node info. So it's just a wrapper around the V1 pod object with some preprocessed information that is like what we assume about this preprocessed information is that it's immutable. It's like preprocessed affinity selectors and whatnot. And this is useful because when we do affinity calculations, especially for like existing pods, we don't want to do it again and again. And processing these selectors is actually like it shows up in our profile, like performance profiles, as something expensive. And so what we did was basically creating this pod info wrapper, and every time we add a pod to the cache, we compute those selectors. We create those selectors, and we just like basically store them with the pod. And when an incoming pod comes in to be processed, like those selectors are already processed, and so we just like do the matching. And so this is one optimization that we did. The other one is like, again, eliminating completely all the mutexes that we have in pod affinity calculations. And that also gave us, both of these optimizations gave us like a 2x performance improvement. And at the same time, there was, I think it was a bug in pod affinity we identified, which is the case where the very first pod in a collection was in a collection when a pod is defining pod affinity, we would allow it to basically schedule anywhere. The correct thing is it has to schedule only on the nodes with topology labels defined in the pod info interpod affinity. So there's like there's some details in there. I think it was a minor issue because typically we like usually in cloud, in the cloud, even on-prem, we properly add topologies to nodes. We don't play with that too much, but I think it was something worth fixing. And so yeah, so at the end, I think in 1.19 in general, we got pod like affinity now. I don't believe it is something that is a bottleneck as it was before. I do believe that people can use it at scale, and it is still like it adds an overhead compared like to a vanilla workload that doesn't use it. But I don't think it's a major bottleneck right now. I do think at some point, I think that right now, most likely, even at scale, we will be able to hit 100 pods per second, and our bottleneck is the API server, not the calculations of pod affinity if it was being used. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, thanks, Abdullah. And I recall there was one tip we can leverage actually in the performance optimization, which is to use pre-allocate the whole slice and use the index. So make that index, only that index atomic, so that reduce the cost of locking, so that we just each time use that in synchronize the lock to inject the real object into that slice, so that we don't need to lock on the whole slice, right? I think that trick is very, very useful. We can in the future use optimizing our code. Yeah, and also this brings up the discussion I used to have with Bobby maybe 1 year or 1.5 years ago, which is the real semantics on pod affinity. When it runs on, when its affinity terms is not only one, it's more than one. So right now, this semantics is not clear documented, but in terms of implementation, we enforce the multiple part affinity terms has to be satisfied on a single path. So, but when we discussed, we sort of think maybe it's not a good idea to limit the part affinity or the part affinity terms to be satisfied on one path. Instead, if there's multiple parts can jointly satisfy all the part affinity, we can think it's satisfied. So yes, I saw although we opened that issues, so maybe in the future we can reopen that and start working on the implementations. That is one discussion on part affinity. Next one is volume binding logics. Right now, all the logic refactor following the scheduling framework standards. So there's no, there is a workaround that we expose a volume binder to the Frank handle, but that is a little ugly because that is only needed for some specific user scenarios. So that with this refactoring, the volume binding initialization will be implemented in the new function of the specific volume binding plugin. Instead, we expose a very wide interface to the framework handle. So I think that's much cleaner in the design's perspective. And the last one is I noticed that there's a requirement in the descheduling side that to implement the part topology spread strategy, because the default scheduler doesn't run any of the filter plugin or scope plugin in the runtime. They just run in the moment that the part gets in the beginning of the scheduling cycle. So in runtime, we had the scheduling, which implements a lot of strategies for you to balance all the workloads across your cluster. So there is a requirement on implement the part topology spread on the scheduling. I think Sean or someone is interested in taking that. So Sean in the participant list. So they want to take on that one. I know that Mayank or someone raised that original issue, but if you have interest, I can ping Mayank to see if he's working on. If not, you can go start working on that. Sean, I see you are talking, but I cannot hear you.
I can hear Sean. Sean, I got you.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Oh, it's my problem.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to start working on that. Yeah, I was going to start working on that in the near-ish future. Yeah, looks like there's like a work in progress pull request that someone had submitted a while ago, so I was going to attempt to revive it. It looks like there's probably going to be there will be some changes required.
Could you just add the link to the work in progress and the issue to the minutes here, to the agenda, just for reference?
Yeah, I can add the link to the Google Doc. Yeah.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I can find the.
Is both for filters and scores, or just filters? What's the intention?
I think it's just for filters.
Okay.
Yeah, let me ping Mayank to see if he's working on it active or not. All right, that's pretty much on the agenda. So anyone else has some other items to discuss? Please go ahead.
one thing regarding the deschedule, are there any plans? What are the plans for the descheduler in general? If anyone here can answer this question. And the other thing is, yeah, I mean, the general plans, this is one thing. The other thing is, are there plans to look into, like, as Aldo was asking, into scoring functions to try to improve, for example, like, placement when anti-affinity is used or hot spread is used as a scoring function rather than predicates, rather than filters.
Yeah, Sean and I have been working pretty closely on the descheduler for a while now, and I guess two parts of that. The general plan that we've been recently working on is getting our release schedule actually synced up with the rest of Kubernetes, making sure that we're regularly releasing and bumping the depths for that, as long as a couple other strategies that we've added recently. But there was talk before about actually trying to either refactor the scheduler or the descheduler, or in some way link into the actual default scheduler plugins to be able to, like you said, get better scoring and filtering to better inform the decisions of the descheduler. I think that kind of led into the work that we were talking about before about breaking the framework dependencies so that they could be easier imported by other projects. So, I mean, we could import plugins as they are, and I think even the registry now, but we don't want to do that if that brings in more Kate's / Kubernetes dependencies. So there was talk about that. I think that there was actually an issue where we were talking about that more in detail, how we could use the default scheduler plugins to make better decisions in the descheduler. Let's see if I can find that issue.
Yeah, another thing is that the China KubeCon is going to be virtual, so there's a mail asking for whether we are willing to present a virtual presentation on SIG-Scheduling, SIG deep dive, but that must be in the China Standard Time. So if you have interest, you just let me and Abdullah know. We will put your name on that.
Okay, so I have the descheduler issue here. This links to some. I added it to the agenda. Links to some of the other talk that was going on about tying into the default scheduler strategy, and talks about moving some of the scheduler code to staging to make it easier to import. And then there was also the suggestion that Robbie had about having the descheduler modify pod spec, I think was the title of that issue, which kind of tied into that too, about just informing the descheduler's decisions to make sure that we're not descheduling in a case where it's just going to end up back on the same node.
Right.
So yeah, I think that would be a good architectural improvement for the descheduler.
Yeah, so maybe we can, along with the post filter and preemption refactoring, we are going to make some functions stateless, and maybe make them public if they are generic enough and they can consume by the descheduler to run, for example, the dry run to see whether evicting some paths can make the workload balanced or adhere to some strategy.
Yeah, along with that, I would really like if we could get more active on the approvals for the PRs related to removing K8s dependencies where we don't need them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these PRs have been open for a while and they're starting to need rebases, and I just out of respect to those authors, I don't want to keep them hanging on for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Anyone else has some items to discuss? All right, we've just used 30 minutes. And thank you, everyone, and see you in the week after next week. Yeah, bye.
See you.
Thanks. Bye.